we do have students.
Several students in the audience.
Apology to the students for the profanities. At this point, I would ask us to resume. Trustee Barry, go on.
Thank you, President Thorpe. Pat, this is a tale of two terms. I served one term from 2010 to 2014, a 5-year term. I served another one from 2016 to 2022, a 6-year term. You're going to help me make some decisions here tonight. I didn't want to get into the blue, but I just might get up and hand this over to Trustee Thorpe, President Thorpe, and we'll go from there. You don't have to say anything, but I will read your face, but I just wanted to have a conversation with you. It took a long time for me to get to the point where I'm at. Most of the people at this table have had some deep conversations, about a lot of things, okay? The first, and John, I hope you're watching, 2010 to 2014, we collectively as a board knew we were the boss, okay? Our bosses were the voters, the taxpayers, the parents in this community that we serve. They elected us to serve here, okay? In my first term at Woodworth, and please nobody interrupt me because this is very difficult for me. At Woodworth, I was called to deal with the situation. I was president that year, okay? We had a male teacher that enjoyed touching little girls, okay? And I reached out, talked to the mom. First it was alleged, but when I talked to the mom and I talked to the administrator of that building, I was told, not this phone, I was told point blank by that administrator that, yes, I'm aware of what the situation is, but I can't do anything about it because he's one of the protected ones. One of the protected ones. So I was off that board after that year. After that situation, after that discussion I had with the principal, God bless his soul, I reached out to Brian Whiston, and within 45 minutes, that teacher was escorted out of that building. I have never tried to go to bed without thinking about that. You're the administrator of that building, and you want to tell the story. He is one of the protected ones. Compared to what? Compared to what? The people we chased out of here? People that we bullied, teachers, administrators, cabinet members? What is that all about? So during the time when I was off the board, we sold the Howe building. And during the time I was off the board, there was a board member that served this district very, very, very well. And I remember, I'm the quoter here, she says, "I am becoming what I got on this board to fight. It's time for me to leave." Sometimes, you know what? It is time to leave. I hope I'm speaking slow enough. I forgot her name. When I got on this board in 2017, I started asking questions about the Howe property. I was approached by a colleague then, and I was told, why can't you just leave that alone? Just leave it alone. I can continue to ask some good questions, which was my responsibility to my constituents. And that board wanted to move and change policies to limit how much request for information I can ask. Think about that for a second. I'm sitting here representing over 100,000 people, over 20,000 students, close to 20,000 people that elected me to put me here. And there was a board that wanted to kind of like silence me up, appropriate actions. What the heck does that even mean? You want to divide the board? That's just wrong. So I felt the intimidation started that year I was on the board. Right away, again, from this building, there was some more information leaked out to the media, and somebody FOIA'd information. They were questioning my integrity by saying that just because I was a family member of one of the employees and I was on that insurance policy, when I was no longer with that employee, I went and got my own policy, and Somebody, that person, my family member, reached out to the insurance company and said, please take Mr. Hussein Berry off this policy. Who would have that information? Why would it go out to the media for it to forward? But you know what? I laughed about that stuff. The insurance company came back with an apology saying that they made a mistake and extended my coverage for an additional month, which I didn't use because I had my own private insurance policy. So I did fire back with a few comments. I'm a Salina boy, probably grew up in the South End. I don't intimidate easy. When I did make some comments, shook up some people. I received a threatening letter from a lawyer. Actually shared it with all my colleagues. Tried to embarrass me, but I'm thankful. My reputation, I'm very thankful. And definitely was not my first rodeo with an attorney, and sounds like it's definitely not my last. I did laugh, because that's the only way you can get through something like that. That attorney showed up here with his $2,500 tie. I still remember that tie because it was very flashy, and threatened me some more. But then he went away. There was nothing else he can do because I was not wrong. I was entitled to ask my questions. Then the fun began. Resignations started, one after another. My questioning about the sale of the Howe building shook some people. And that's not a bad thing for the taxpayers, the owners of these buildings in this community. The appointment process started. I remember sitting at a college meeting telling one of my colleagues 2-3 months before we appointed that person, I said, there is your next colleague. She laughed at me. And sure enough, fast forward, we know what happened. Most of us did. Again, there was people from this building involved in that process, which was wrong.
Trustee Berry, how much more time?
I got about probably 6-7 minutes.
Try to keep moving
And I
on.
might not be here for comments, so let me finish, please. We had a case that my lawyer wanted to take to the state Supreme Court on the definition of majority. I know there's a lot of mathematicians in this room. The majority of 7 is 4. At the same time, the majority of 6 is also 4. We've spent thousands of dollars this past 18 months on board member training. I sat across the hall here or down the hall with my colleagues, 2 nights, 3 hours of my life, trying to tell us how to get along. When the true message was stay in your lane, be a team player, don't question the superintendent. But I truly felt like sometimes it is my position. It is our responsibility to ask questions at meetings. Early in my second term, I realized that we were being mean to a lot of teachers. And it took a change on the board, an addition of a board member, and you've heard me mention that name many, many times, for us to kind of start looking out for teachers. That's crazy stuff. Currently, right now, we have an employee that people think that he should have been relieved, he or she should have been relieved of their duty 15 years ago and is still around. What that person's been through for the last 10, 15 years, uncalled for. If we're competent enough to move past an employee, we should do it. It shouldn't take us 15 years. We shouldn't cut an employee's throat with a dull butter knife. That's very painful for employees and very painful for their families. If, as a board member, if I am invited to a game, which I have been, or an event, which I have been, I should know, I should be told who paid for those tickets. What people do on their own personal time is off limits. When employees, what they do on their personal time is off limits to me, and I understand it better than most. I don't care about that part. I don't ever want to ask about that part. But in my world, in the real estate world, in the health industry, when there's gifts, some people looking for bribes. And I know a lot of lawyers, I know a lot of doctors, I know a lot of pharmacists, I know a lot of realtors that went to jail because of stuff like that. So we've had, I'm trying to finish as fast as I can. We've had some investigations from 2016 to present. When attorneys like to pass out expensive game tickets and their work doubles or triples, maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe it's not a big deal. But when in February of 2020, I was approached by an employee that alleged there was a crime that took place, who do I turn to? I have to turn to our attorney to protect us. I shared that information with the attorney, did an investigation. He didn't feel that it was necessary to go into that. So to that employee, 3 years later, I know you still don't have any closure, but I did my best. I did my best without crossing any lines. We followed up with a meeting on that investigation. The best way to say this is there was untruthful information brought forward. One of my colleagues was with me in that room. When we walked out, I said, "Are you kidding me? You know what just happened?" The response I got was, sometimes lying to protect relationships is okay. It's never, never, ever okay. We say students first. It should always be students first, never relationships first. So what does that mean, the protected ones? We protect some employees. At whose expense? I think we know a lot of people that are paying the price for that. Cabinet members, administrators, teachers that try to speak out, to do the right thing. Why is that all important? Because without teachers, can't educate students. Without a positive environment in the district, it's very difficult to bring up scores. It's very difficult to motivate students. Without a positive culture from the top all the way down, without a positive culture, it's very, very difficult. Who suffers? In February of 2023, I started asking about reading assessment scores. Nothing. Nothing. Here we are, we're trying to deal with everything else. I still don't have, what is it we're going to have we do to bring up some of these reading scores? When students are grade 2, 3 behind in the elementary level, when they get to middle schools, guess who's got to deal with them? When a student is behind on reading and everything else, they feel like there's something wrong with them. What do? They start acting up. They don't know why Susie or Hamoudi is doing better than they are. They feel like there's something wrong with them, and they start acting up. And guess who pays the price for that? We're looking at them. When I ask questions about reading scores, there's a reason for it. This is our future. If we're not educating our future, if we're not teaching them to read and write, and we'll get to the arithmetic later on. I've heard terms like demographics. What does that mean? Are we saying that some students are too poor to learn or too brown to learn? What does that mean? How can we sit here and hear that? I also heard from some educators is don't pay too much attention to the assessment scores. But a few years ago, I was sitting in a college class with two students that are related to each other, like very closely related to each other, one from Sterling Heights and one from Dearborn. And it was so obvious that one was behind. This is my community, this is our community. And if we don't look out for this district, without mentioning any names of any other districts, What's the difference? What's the difference when a client, the reason I'm picking on you, Patrick D'Ambrosio, is because you come from the same world I come from. When it comes to home values, when it comes to services in the city, when it comes to when a parent is going to decide what district they're going to move into, they do look into the assessment scores. Assessment scores were brought to me by a client, showed me Dearborn compared to other places. If we, the seven of us, don't get to it, I don't know who's gonna. We have to. So I'm a good reader of faces. I've made a living reading faces. And Pat, I know you don't want me to give this to Jim Thorpe. I know you don't. And John, I made you a promise in 2016. When I knocked on your door, I had an 18 or a 19-year-old young lady forcing me to knock on doors, which I hated. When I knocked on your door and you answered the door, I started sounding like a nerd. Hi, my name is. You said, Mr. Berry, I know who you are. I didn't vote for you last time, but my wife has me following you. Keep doing what you're doing. So, John, the promise I made you, you know that promise. I will keep doing what I'm doing. Thank you, President Thorpe.
Okay, I have to step out for a second. However, Trustee Berry, whether it was intentional or not, there were some things in there that can sound as accusations. So I want to let board members have a chance to respond to some things, so it's not just left out there as being the only possible truth.
I will be more than happy to answer any questions, and I am an honest man.
One thing that you said at the beginning was about reports that were shared with the board. The second report, and I believe there was two, does that sound right to you?
I'm talking about the report. Can I say her name, the attorney's name?
If it's the, yeah.
A few things were mentioned. Number one, and then this was a question that I had for those who are watching. With this agenda, I think it's best for, if we have board commentary, which this was, that we save it during board commentary. I have struggled with that as well as to when is the best time to ask questions? Is it during board commentary? Is it during board request for information? And I would ask that we do that towards the end, only because I'm seeing that we have a full room full of students, and we have a lot of blue cards that are associated with teachers that have to get up very early in the morning. So I would say that in the future, if we can keep that during board commentary, just so that we're respectful of your time, number one. Number two, there was an innuendo in there about reading our faces or cringing. I have a voice. I can speak for myself, but thank you. And I would say that if I'm cringing, I will use my voice and I will say whatever I feel. So I can speak for myself. But I think when we're talking about modeling behavior, we need to start with ourselves. And we did have a presentation last board meeting, where we did have staff members come up. And I was shocked by the level in which they were spoken to. So I think we need to take a minute, and sometimes it does get emotional up here, but take a minute and think, how is this going to come across to those students that we have in the audience? Obviously, earlier we had something that we had an outburst, and when I'm looking out of the crowd, I see that we have our students there. So I think we need to take a minute and say, is this the best way to address it? And thirdly, I think part of this, you have a folder, and again, I struggle with this as well. When I receive the information, what do I do with it? So I had a parent say that they had an issue at the school. It's not my responsibility necessarily to take action, but my responsibility is the information that I hold that says, number one, make your teacher aware of it. Perhaps that teacher has no idea that that student is being bullied. If you don't get the results, take it to the principal. And so I try to make sure that I'm being diligent about that. But if we don't have that information, Trustee Berry, that you have in your hand, and if you don't share that with the entire board, I don't know what you're talking about. So last time when you had this legal opinion, I was caught off guard because I didn't have it. So if my face was like that, it was because later on, I then reached out to the president and said, what is this legal opinion that is being mentioned? So I would ask that if you do receive any information, and I say this to all board members, please share it with the rest of us. Because in the public, when we are asked these, if I don't have that information, then I can't do anything with it. So Trustee Barry, I would ask that when you come to a board meeting, if you have that information, please share it with us. Because all of us who are here, the 6 of us, don't have that information, and we're going with incomplete data. And we know as teachers how much we love our data. So with that, I would ask, sorry, I'm being asked to slow down, that you share that, because a lot of this stuff I don't have privy or an understanding or the historic intrinsic knowledge to say. So I would request that.
Yeah, no, thank you, thank you. I completely agree with you. When you have information, you should share it. But when an attorney shares a report of an investigation with our president, it's up to the president to do something with it.
Correct, but you knew that you had it in your hand and you were going to present it
I've had
to
it
the
in my hand for
board.
6 months. I've had it in my folder. I've had it in my bag for 6 months.
But last month, when you had it,
Yeah,
you knew you were going to discuss it, but you didn't tell the rest of us.
absolutely not.
I didn't have it.
Absolutely not.
You didn't tell me.
No, you're saying that I knew I was going to discuss it. I reacted. You and I, and we're talking at the college policy committee, that it's probably a good idea that the first thing we do, and most school boards do this, is to approve the agenda and make any amendments. Last meeting, I sat through like almost 28 minutes of a report that was not on my agenda, and I was caught by surprise. And at that point, I reacted and I asked some questions. So I agree with you. That report should have been shared with everybody right away. I gave an opportunity to my 2 colleagues, they had a copy that served as president, former president and president, to do something with it. That was not on me. That's legal. That's legal. And the other thing, when I was saying cringe, I swear to God, I wasn't referring to you.
Oh, no,
I was not.
I would
I
hope
did-
you would
I
know
did.
that I
Yeah,
would
I
hope that you
did.
would know that I would be able
I
to
did
speak
look
for myself.
around, and there was some people like, what's going on here? I don't, maybe they were cringing because they had to use the bathroom or something. I don't know, but it was wrong. It was wrong. We have an agenda here. And just so we're on the same page, the president and the superintendent work together to put the agenda together, and then they share it with the board, then they share it with the public. That's the way it's always been. Why this year? Why this year so many changes? I'm sick and tired of people at the MASB telling me what to do or not to do. I go to a seminar in Southfield, and the presentation was, stay in your lane. Your superintendent is always right. He's right a lot of times. He's done some great things. For somebody to be conditioning that to me, you tell a dog that you're human, eventually that dog will stand up on 2 feet, start walking. Nobody's going to tell me when to ask questions, when not to ask questions, and I don't intimidate easy. You know what? If I cross some lines, which I have, I'm man enough to step up and say, hey, maybe I shouldn't have done it that way.
But Trustee Berry, nobody's saying you can't ask questions. We're just
Oh,
saying
no,
the way that.
Trustee,
the way to- Hold
Go
on,
ahead,
let me
finish. I'm
finish.
sorry. I
Nobody's saying
said-
that you can't ask questions.
Yeah.
But I think it's when do you ask questions and what's the best process for asking those questions? That's all. So I am always asking questions.
Yes,
So,
and I appreciate your questions. But what I was referring to back in 2017, 2018, when my colleagues,
I like to call that before I came on the board. So I'm going to say, like, for that instance, when you bring that up,
I
that
was
board.
telling my
we're
good
new.
friend here, I was telling my good friend, it took a long time for get to the position I'm in. It took me a long time. When I have 4 or 5 of my colleagues tell me, you cannot request information because it's taken a lot of toll on the administration. They're spending too much time answering your questions. From now on, we're gonna, unless we have a quorum that wants that information, we shouldn't ask that. Okay, so I'm like, okay, what am I doing wrong here? So, but then there was another board member that came on board, and he reminded me of a 20-year-old younger version of me, and he started asking questions. We all know how that worked out in January.
Well, I think we have to also, like, again, you're referring to things that we weren't on the board for.
Again,
So I have.
I gave my good friend, I can say Patrick, Trustee D'Ambrosio, the heads up that I was going to tell him a story because he's wondering, am I okay? Nobody else asked me to see if I'm okay. Maybe the way I acted last meeting, maybe it was something wrong with me. Maybe I'm going through some things myself. Somebody should have checked with me. Nobody did. My good friend said, hey, and I said, I'm going to share a story with you. I'm going to tell him it took a long time for me to get to where I'm at. This district is a great district. We are Dearborn. Nobody leaves Dearborn to go someplace else because it's closer to home. People come to this district from all over the world. We hired employees over Skype interviews, and they're doing a terrific job. People want to be part of this district. So when somebody tells me people leave because of a 10-minute, just unheard of. I can't believe that. It used to be you got out of school, Michigan State or Michigan or Wayne State or whatever, a lot of great universities around. Your first resume went to Dearborn Public Schools. I want to get back to those days. And it is on us. It is on us. Was there any other questions? President Thorpe, you started to ask a question, then you walked away.
Well, no, I apologize. I had to take care of something else. I would say that we all want to make sure that the students do well and that the employees want to be here.
Yes.
We share the same goals. It's how we achieve the goals and make sure that we're moving forward and not appearing to always be infighting on things. It doesn't mean that we're agreeing, but that when we disagree, we do it in a respectful fashion, and we don't put things out there that make it look like accusations towards others. And again, I'm not saying that anything was meant or not. What I was going to mention was that one report that you mentioned 6 months ago, there was one that was 3 months ago, January 20, roughly.
Okay, that one started last year. The final report, you are 100% correct, so I take that back. My good friend, take that back. There was nothing on you. That report was finalized under President Thorpe's tenure, so.
Yeah, and
thank you for reminding me.
And when that one came due, the board was still going through the changeover from last year, and I had asked Trustee Barry, give me some time, and then it slipped my mind when we were dealing with other things.
Okay, so let me just respond real quick. Give me some time. That's why that report was in my bag, because I was giving them time. January, February, March, April, I was giving them time. There's one more thing before I lose my thought. I asked people not to interrupt me, and I've been doing that, so I have to take a breath. I have to breathe a little bit here. Accusations, no, I have no problem. I'm like an open book. If anybody has any questions for me without breaking any laws, without breaking any, crossing any lines, if anybody wants to ask me one-on-one, I have no problem with that either, so.
So one of the things that you had mentioned spurred something that I had spoken with Trustee Thorpe about earlier this afternoon. And this was during board commentary, but I will just go ahead and say it now because I think it comes full circle. I had asked that as a board, last time we did our goals was in January of 2021. And I think part of it is that we haven't revisited what we would like as board goals. So I think as the school year is winding down and we have 20-some days left, I think that as a board, we should come up and start thinking about what sort of board goals would we like. And I think part of this then we can then decide what do we think our main goals or maybe our top 3 should be, and as a board collectively at the next meeting, be able to share that so that we all are on the same page as how we would like this district to move forward and what are those goals outside of the strategic plan, because I feel like the strategic plan is 5 years out and board goals are more of the immediate. And I think that would probably be, if that's okay that I went out of line, that because you had mentioned that, then maybe that's something we can think of.
And it's just a question of when we'd want the goals to start. We don't have to start goals on January 1. We could decide to start them at the beginning of the school year.
Correct.
But that's for the board to decide when we would do that.
And I'm done.
And I want to say thank you to Trustee Watt. I don't know what you had for lunch today, but I would like to find out. At the meeting, you kind of stepped in and helped out tremendously. And right now, you're kind of, I am, this was not hard for me to do. You are kind of putting my thoughts into it, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Superintendent, or Dr. Malenko?
Yeah, I just need the record to show that I do not have a copy of that report that was referenced from 6 months ago. So I have never received it. I don't have it. I have the one from January, but I do not have it, so there's nothing I can comment on with that. Also, I know the board received on April 29th, my communication officially, I felt ambushed at the last meeting, bottom line. And my rights were violated. The board's received a copy that we need to adhere to that. I also want to state that, we understand we need to improve. We know everything's not perfect. We have teachers here right now, we're in negotiations, we need to improve. We get it. And that's how I opened with the last time. My commentary, I do add things to my commentary. It's my commentary, it's superintendent commentary. It's not the formal report. And I think we should celebrate the fact that we had some teachers that wanted to come up and give their testimonials. We understand that not everyone's experience is the same, but we did have some that were excited to come and share in a positive manner. Why not share that and celebrate it at a board meeting and say, look, these great employees that we all have and we see here, and they're doing great work for our students. That's what I do each and every day when I go to the schools, when I see the teachers doing great things for our students. We came out of the pandemic thanks to the teachers here, and I'm going to applaud you all right now, and all our staff. But when our staff wants to come up and share a positive story, we should celebrate it, because this is Dearborn Public Schools. And again, we also understand that we need to improve, and we recognize that. But I've been in this district now, I'm going on almost 28 years. I love this district. This district is the heart and soul. My record's been impeccable, but I work with everybody. I work with the unions, the teachers, everyone. And I want everyone to know that that impression that there was something wrong last time is not accurate, and it didn't happen, because I have a unblemished record in my file, never any wrongdoing. And I need to point that out, because that impression was given at the last meeting when I felt ambushed. Having said that, I want to move forward in a positive manner. I want to get behind it, and I hope we all, as board trustees, can put it behind us, the superintendent, and we can work together to do what's right for our students and try to do that in a positive manner. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to respond, unless Mary wants to go first.
Well, just a couple points I want to make. One, we have an agenda for a reason, and we follow that agenda for a reason. It's like traffic rules. It's an expectation of how we are going to move forward through the meeting. And we get the agenda early enough on to ask questions if we have some issues with it. The superintendent does have a section on there that says other. We don't know what other is going to be, and he has that right to use his other as he sees fit. Otherwise, we can take that away if we so choose, I would assume. The other thing is that if we don't adhere to the agenda as it is laid out and leave board commentary for where board commentary is and board questions for where board questions are, and we start to lose track of the time frame that the agenda lays out, so that we have people in the room with an expectation that they are going to be able to come up and speak at a certain time, either a presentation or whatever, and we sidetrack away from the agenda, it's violating the organization of the meeting. So we need to be sure that we respect the agenda as it is placed. And when somebody calls out point of order, that should be at commentary or question period. I think that we should all respect that and move back to focusing on the agenda as it is laid out. The other thing, just as an aside, is that we continue to have board retreats where we talk about no surprises. It's a big thing. It's a big thing all the time, because when we're surprised, and there were several of us at the last board meeting who were very surprised by you holding up a file saying you had something, and we were like, we didn't know what you had and what you were talking about, and you included only 2 other board members, and it caught us completely off guard. we don't want surprises. And if you go back and revisit any of the minutes in past meetings, you'll see that most of the time, even though there's an innuendo that you were surprised, there usually isn't if you go back and revisit past minutes. And so speaking on the one thing, you were talking about that none of the other board members know, because it's in our bylaws now. We went and, when you were on the board and I was back on the board again, you're referring to something some of the other board members did, and they amended the bylaw about requesting information. It wasn't asking questions that you're referencing. It was asking for information that required a substantial amount of time for a report to be put together, that possibly only one board member was interested in having that information. So I believe, if my memory serves me well, is that the board president at the time suggested that we have a quorum who says if one board member wants some information that maybe the rest of the board is not interested in, and it was going to take us an amount of time on an employee to gather all that information, that the board should say, yeah, I'm interested in having that information or not, and that would be the decision maker for moving forward with that request. And that is in our bylaws currently. If we want to go back and revisit that and amend it, we haven't actually exercised that right in I don't know how long. Generally speaking, you can ask for information and it's going to go through, even if 7 of us, have difference of opinions of whether they're going to use that information. And we didn't have board briefs back then like we do now, which really helps to ask those questions as well. So that's just a reminder for those board members who aren't aware of it, of why that conversation was had back then. And I just want to make certain that there aren't implied, just as Trustee Watts said, you're saying you're reading faces or you have information or this or that. You might be misinterpreting what we know, what we don't know, what we're reacting to. And it's really not fair to put us into your circle of information when we haven't conferred that conversation with you. There has been many times where you've implied things that some board members know things, and I don't know what you're talking about. I really don't. I don't have that information before me. I'm not certain what you're referring to. But it gives the impression to everybody who's hearing you that there's something going on that we're aware of that's not being spoken of. I really don't know what you're talking about a lot of the time. Because you don't relay all of the information. You only relay parts of it. And so I don't know what you're referencing. So just to be fair to all of us, that there's no surprises, I'd like to make sure that we respect the time here and not use it to present a picture that might not be a full reflection of every board member's place at the table.
Real quick.
I'm sorry, Trustee Barry.
So part of the information that only if one board member asked questions, it was one board member that asked the questions about what are the graduation rates for our district. It was one board member that brought it up to us that we want bilingual, if one board member thinks they have a good idea and they ask for that information and everybody gets educated on it and it serves us better, I say, why not? Surprises? I'm a tie surprises, just surprises and agenda. I completely respect the agenda. I do. But when I was here and under other, usually if there's like some news from the state or news from the federal government about something happening, whatever, that's what usually falls under other. But to have a 28-minute presentation, it should have been discussed with the chair. And I clearly asked the chair in the beginning of this meeting, was he aware of that report? And he did say no. So talk about surprises. I was surprised. And back to that thank you for, there's a couple of things that I took some notes on, I have to improve on, so I appreciate that. But I just wanted to clear up some of the things. I apologize to Trustee McDonald, and I don't know if you hear me say that. The report I was referring to, I assumed that it was 6 months ago, it was January. The report of January, which I believe, I did ask President Thorpe if he received a copy. The report that we're talking about, the Dr. Malik,
Is the one from January.
from
I
January.
have the January.
Yeah, that's the one I was referring to. There was some leakage
But I
of
don't have the
information.
other
Yeah.
report.
So you felt like you're ambushed?
Yes.
Yes. At that meeting, as soon as you say you didn't do anything wrong, I followed up with, absolutely not. I'm not saying you did anything wrong. I wasn't looking to paint a picture you did something wrong. You didn't. Everybody's talked to me the last 2 or 3 weeks wondering what's going on in my head. I said,
Trustee Barry,
He's-
back
he's-
to the mic a little bit. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, so if at that point, if that was discussed with President Thorpe and it was put on the agenda, no surprises, this and that, you know what? Yes, thank you, teachers. Thank you for what you do. You left, you came back for obvious reasons. At the same time, I would have shared some of the other teachers' positions. So I kind of felt, I'm not going to felt like, I didn't feel ambushed. I was surprised that it happened. That report, yes, I was told by President Thorpe, we will get to it. I did have a copy. But I swear to you, the reason Trustee McDonald had a copy because it was initiated under her tenure. The final report went to Trustee Thorpe. It's not something that I had and shared with Trustee McDonald or President Thorpe. It was emailed to President Thorpe. I was copied on it, so was Trustee McDonald. So I didn't have it and didn't share with you, didn't share with everybody else. It wasn't on me to do that. I knew eventually we were going to get to it. And we did. Not the way I would have liked it, but it just happened. Any other questions for me from my colleagues?
It's not a question, I just want to make a couple of points. As we all know, 10 people can look at something or read something, and they all have a different perspective depending on what their experiences are. And so whatever you believe to be true might not necessarily be what I see or believe to be true. So it's hard to say that because I saw this and I believe this, that we should all be on the same page and accept it. So I just wanted to make that point. And as far as MASB training, I get a lot out of the training. And I don't think they're sitting there saying, you stay in your lane and you stay in their lane. There are specific roles for us to play. There's specific roles for board members, there's specific roles for superintendents, and we need to work together, but at the same time, I'm not gonna go in a school and try to, change a light bulb or, that's not my role, that's not my responsibility. If I have questions, if I have concerns, there's appropriate ways to do that too. You can bring it up to the superintendent. You can, talk to about some of your other board members. This is a concern of mine. Do you have the same concern?
Put your hand up.
But I just want to say that I think that Dr. Maleko is an outstanding superintendent. I think he served us well for a quarter of a century. And I just, we're not all perfect, but I think his heart is true. I think he cares about students first, and he does put them first. And I do not question his integrity.
Trustee Watts?
I would ask that all our board members, and with respect to everyone's time, that we change the agenda so that I already see our students have left. I see there are students that have left for commendations, so if we can do Teacher of the Year, then accommodations, and then move to next citizen participation. And then I have a stack, but quite honestly, if teachers, and I'm sure you're great at this, if you can organize yourself, I will call your names, but if there's somebody that needs to get to school, needs to get home earlier, please somehow communicate with us or say you pass it on to somebody else, because we want to be respectful of your time and that you've got an early morning. So if that's okay with everybody else, all the board members.
I'll support that. If that's a motion, I'll support it.
They could easily be motion, that's fine. It's your call, President Thorpe.
Yeah.
So I'm okay,
Teacher of
state
the
again.
year, teacher of the year, and then we'll do teacher of the year, acknowledgements of donations, staff recognition, commendations, and then citizen participation. I think it'll be, what, 5 minutes between?
Yeah, I don't know why you'd move commendations to the end and not leave it right before teacher.
Well, the students have left.
Okay, so buy a little
I
bit
leave
of
it up
time
to
on that one.
I can read the commendations at the end if you'd like, or whatever
Okay,
you want to put them.
all right, that's fine. Sorry, there was something else in my thought, but as long as everyone else is okay
There's a
with changing the
motion to
order.
amend the agenda.
Yeah, there's a motion to amend the agenda and
support.
was it, well, did you make the motion and trustee Moses made supported it? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The one thing I would say is that I think we might have some blue cards from some people that are in an overflow room. Does that sound right?
We may, and I believe some people left, so
There were 7 or 8 people down there, we can go check.
So if we can make sure that they have a chance to get in, so we're not waiting too long for those speakers when it gets to be time.
correct.
Okay. All right. Then moving on to the next item would be Teacher of the Year. If I got that right. Teacher of the Year is next then?
Yes.
Okay,
Teacher of the year.
okay.
So we will announce if they're here or still here. It was a great ceremony a week ago. I know several trustees were there. You know, what better thing but to celebrate our staff and our teachers. It was heartfelt, and I know there were some tears last week. But I'm not sure who's here exactly, but I have a list here. The winners were Angela Fillmore, Melanie Namey, Emily Matash, Michael Schmidt, and Hala Farhat. If you're here, if you could come up and we'll. Yeah.
Okay. You want to just stand next to me? Okay. Thanks. So this is our second time meeting, so look how good Dearborn is. Good evening, President Thorpe, Board Trustees, and Dr. Maleko. It's an honor to be here as your K through 2 Teacher of the Year. My name is Angela Fillmore. So my speech is going to go a little different because how the night has gone. But I just want to say, if you look into PLCs, professional learning communities, Dearborn, we do it with our teachers and our students. I think the board, you guys would love right? You would love the method of it. We assess, we apply, we collaborate, we share thoughts and ideas, we stay on the same track. So I just think that would be something to look into since we do it every day with our children and it seems to work. So thank you for that. With me tonight, well, my daughters were here. They had to leave with the fiasco, but Carmela and Mia Fillmore and my husband, they were here, Brett. I want to thank my family and also Mrs. McInville for being here and showing their continued support. It means really so much to me. Real quick, I've been teaching in Dearborn the last 6 years at Hague, but 19 years in education. Nothing has compared to Dearborn and the overwhelming appreciation from my family's dedicated students and the most knowledgeable colleagues at Hague. This is like what we're seeing here tonight is kind of the behind the scenes stuff that's, you know, that takes away from education and takes away from our mission as teachers. So, but we still go to work every day. We still look at our students. We look at those precious babes that, you know, put so much trust in us and our families. And hopefully you guys will be able to see through it and know that the purpose in our mission is much more powerful than this background noise. So I just wanted to say that real quick. I want to thank Dearborn Chamber of Commerce for putting this together for our teachers and allowing our community to have a voice in what's right in education. It's very rare in this day of profit and loss to set aside time and funds to the unsung heroes, the teachers. Last but not least, I want to thank Kathy Martin, our union president, also my fellow union educators that are here today. for being our voice and supporting the cause of Let Us Teach. I am confident in the days, weeks, months ahead that we will all come together for the greater good to preserve our great talent here in Dearborn and put the best teachers in front of our students. That's what the students and families of Dearborn deserve, nothing less. Thank you for having me here tonight. And thank you for the opportunity to motivate, inspire, and encourage our youth. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I hope this puts a little bit more positive spin on tonight. Thank you so much.
Yeah, before you leave, not all the trustees had a chance to be at the Teacher of the Year Award, so if all the trustees can.
I know. I'm not
So-
smiling enough.
So we have a chance for a do-over then. Trustees, if you want to join us for a quick picture.
Oh, do you want me to hit that?
David, where do you want us?
Maybe I'll look at the camera this time. She's very supportive.
Just so that they're looking at it.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful smile. Beautiful. Nice. One more.